Let's begin with the structural overview. Welcome to another lecture. Today we examine Luka Modrić, not merely as a celebrated footballer, but as a living case study in resilience, positional intelligence, and how modern football revalues the midfield mind. I am Alexei. With me is Priyanka. Together we will try to separate myth from mechanism and narrative from the data of the record.
Hi, I am Priyanka. I am excited and maybe a little intimidated by how much there is to cover, but I think we can make it clear.
To frame our discussion, Luka Modrić is a Croatian professional footballer, fundamentally a central midfielder. It is crucial to understand that the term central midfielder here is too coarse. In practice, he has operated across the continuum from attacking number 10 to left-sided midfielder to deep-lying playmaker, the latter being the analytic heart of his Real Madrid years. A deep-lying playmaker dictates tempo from deeper zones, breaks opposition lines via progressive passing, and stabilizes transitions through positioning and press resistance. In simpler terms, he makes everyone else's decisions easier by making the ball move to the right place at the right time.
So, I guess we can start by thinking about the competitions too. When we say UEFA Champions League and La Liga, we mean Europe's premier club tournament and Spain's top division. His influence in both is huge, from Real Madrid's European dominance to league control across seasons.
Indeed, a small technical note. You will hear the term trivela. This is the outside of the foot strike that imparts curvature, a useful vector when the inside foot lane is congested. In Modric's case, it becomes an instrument of geometry, the knight's move in chess rather than the rook's linearity. We also observe that his profile combines first-touch security, vision, scanning, and a capacity to withstand pressure that was honed early in the Bosnian Premier League, where at 18 he was voted Player of the Year for Zrinjski Mostar.
I often think listeners want to know why this matters now. Midfielders were often measured by assists or goals, but with Modrić, the perception shifted toward valuing control, decision quality, and timing in big moments. His 2018 awards run essentially said, the conductor can be the soloist too.
This brings us to relevance and stakes. Modrić reweighted how we price the unseen labor between the boxes. After early skepticism about his slight build and media dismissals as too light, even the infamous worst signing label in late 2012, he reframed the discourse with performances in high-leverage matches. The upshot is that modern recruitment and analytics now treat ball progression, press resistance, and tempo control as decisive outputs, not decorative ones.
And historically misunderstood capabilities become strengths. It makes me wonder how environments either limit or amplify certain traits. In his case, the environment eventually amplified them.
Let's start with the history. Born in 1985 in Zadar, his childhood was shaped by the Croatian War of Independence. Years in hotels as a refugee, football on parking lots, inspirations like Zvonimir Boban and Francesco Totti, and crucial mentorship from Tomislav Basic, who engineered the move to Dinamo Zagreb. As a teenager on loan at Zrinjski Mostar, he learned to survive physical football. Hence his later remark that someone who can play in the Bosnian Premier League can play anywhere. Returning to Dinamo, he won league titles, earned Prva HNL Player of the Year, and exited to Tottenham Hotspur in 2008, wearing the number 14 in homage to Johan Cruyff by his own account. There is a disputed folktale about wooden shin guards made by his father. Modrić has denied that anecdote, which we note for the integrity of the record.
Building on that, at Spurs, the arc is resilience again. A broken fibula in 2009, then a return in which he scored with that leg. He helped Spurs into the Champions League for the first time in almost 50 years in 2010. Then the 2011 transfer saga, The gentleman's agreement he cited was contested. He briefly refused to play the opener, yet he stayed one more year before moving to Real Madrid in 2012.
Speaking of reputation, at Madrid, the inflection point arrives in March 2013 at Old Trafford. He equalized from distance, Real advance, and public perception in Spain rotates by 90 degrees. In 2014, he assisted the 93rd minute corner to Sergio Ramos in the Champions League final. La Decima was secured, and his status as the organizing mind was no longer disputable. From 2016 to 2018, under Zidane and Ancelotti, we observed sustained European dominance, culminating in 2018 when he won the World Cup Golden Ball with Croatia, UEFA Men's Player of the Year, the best FIFA men's player, and the Ballon d'Or, breaking a decade of Messi-Ronaldo hegemony. He proceeded to accumulate a record 6 Champions League final wins alongside Dani Carvajal, and set longevity records at Real Madrid. In 2025, he transitioned to AC Milan at 39, becoming the oldest debutant in Serie A history. He immediately contributed with an assist and a winning goal in early matches before a fractured cheekbone in 2026 curtailed the season. Throughout, he captained Croatia, leading them to World Cup silver in 2018, bronze in 2022, and a 2023 Nations League silver. He is the most decorated Croatian player, with a career trophy count in the mid-30s, the bulk at Real Madrid. To personalize the analysis, I admire the composure that seems forged by early disruption. In chess, we speak of playing the position rather than the opponent. Modrić plays the state of the match rather than the noise within it. The resilience from Zadar's hotel corridors to Old Trafford's cauldron is a pedagogical example of how constraints can incubate clarity. Moving forward, let us turn to 3 grand questions. Question 1. The historical counterfactual with local flavor. What if Hajduk Split had signed Modrić early, rather than deeming him too slight? The observed timeline is rejection by Hajduk, a pathway via Tomislav Basic to Dinamo, loans to Zrinski Mostar and Inter Zaprešić, then Dinamo stardom, Spurs, and Real. The alternative timeline would likely keep him in Dalmatia longer, potentially altering his exposure to Dinamo's infrastructure and the Bosnian loan that he credits for hardening both technique under duress and his body against contact.
I am curious about how early club environments shape development. If he stayed around Split, would he have missed the Mostar loan and that physical education? Or could a different coach have created a similar challenge? How pivotal are those teenage moves in expectation terms?
It's important to understand path dependence. Early career moves set not just coaching inputs, but the probability distribution of match minutes in varied game states, the quality of peers, and the intensity of contact one experiences. Zrinski Mostar at 18 delivered repeated high-contact minutes, which he later called decisive. If Hajduk had signed him and kept him in less abrasive contexts, we can infer a slower acquisition of the same robustness, or perhaps a different set of strengths, emphasizing dribbling in lighter traffic. The Dinamo pathway also offered European qualifiers, spotlight for scouts, and a culture of exporting talent. In simpler terms, his specific sequence maximized both exposure and adaptation under stress. Altering that sequence introduces variance and likely delays the timeline by which a Premier League club pays to center a project around him. That being said, talent of this order is remarkably elastic to environment. The eventual floor remains high. The difference is often timing, and timing in elite sport is half of destiny. Who needs you, in which system, and at what moment of their competitive cycle? Question 2. Tottenham, summer 2011. Chelsea bid. Spurs refuse. The purported gentleman's agreement is contested. Modrić briefly declines to play an opener, and the move does not happen. Suppose Spurs accept. At Chelsea under Andre Villas-Boas, the intention was a modern pressing possession model. Modrić is a world-class accelerator of that idea. Perhaps the project stabilizes. Perhaps the mid-season pivot to Di Matteo never occurs in the same manner. Or if it does, a Modrić-Hazard axis in subsequent seasons becomes a league-winning control room even earlier than it did with later signings like Fabregas. Meanwhile, Tottenham without Modrić likely struggle to cement top four. Perhaps Gareth Bale's platform changes, and Real Madrid may not acquire Modrić in 2012, which ripples through the 2014 Champions League final. No Modrić corner to Ramos. La Decima arrives by another path, or another year, or not at all.
What comes to mind next is Chelsea's actual 2012 Champions League run, which was very pragmatic. If Modrić had joined, could that have changed the style and still produced trophies? And would Hazard's peak years have had an even stronger midfield platform? I know we are hypothesizing, but the shape of those seasons shifts in my head.
Theoretically, we model this as a system with one added control node. Modrić increases the team's capacity to retain and progress possession under pressure, which raises the ceiling for style-consistent wins. Yet knockout football contains high noise. The actual 2012 triumph was path-dependent on heroic defending and late-game variance. With Modrić, Chelsea may exit earlier while attempting to impose control, or conversely win the league sooner via sustainable dominance. At Tottenham, absence of Modrić impedes the 2010 to 2012 evolution. Bale's usage alters, perhaps his move timing changes. At Real Madrid, the midfield triangle of Kroos, Casemiro, Modrić never quite forms. Zidane's model adjusts, and some of the famous comebacks of 2016 to 2018 require a different conductor. In conclusion, a single transfer acceptance in 2011 plausibly reshapes the competitive architecture of England and Spain in the early 2010s. Question 3. Implications of longevity. Modrić did elite work deep into his late 30s, setting age records at Real Madrid for La Liga and Champions League appearances, and becoming the club's most decorated player by mid-2024. His late move to AC Milan at 39 produced an immediate assist and a winning goal before a fractured cheekbone in 2026 curtailed the season. The lesson is that cognitive football, situational scanning, energy-efficient technique, and positional anticipation scales well with age when paired with intelligent load management.
Can we say that youth training should incorporate longevity thinking from the start? I am curious about practical implications for academies. Dosage, recovery, and role design so that players can age into deep-lying roles without losing influence.
We observe 3 pillars. First, technique density early. Build automaticity in first touch, body orientation, and outside foot passing so that energy costs per action are low later. Second, tactical literacy. Teach players to read pressure cues, to move by half spaces rather than by sprints, and to control transitions by pre-positioning. Third, load management and recovery science. Microdosed high-intensity work, strength around hips and ankles for long-term joint health, sleep, nutrition, and psychological skills for big match calm. Further research is warranted in neuromuscular efficiency metrics, age-adapted pressing schemes, and the economics of one-year contract cycles for veteran playmakers who double as on-field mentors. In simpler terms, train the brain, protect the joints, and make the ball do the running for you.
Maybe it is worth adding that visibility matters. His Trivela assist to Rodrigo against Chelsea in 2022 became a kind of public lecture on timing and courage. And young players learn from that film. Role models change practice.
To summarize, Luka Modrić is an elite central midfielder whose deep-lying playmaking reframed value in modern football. We traced his path from Zadar's upheaval and Dinamo's platform to Tottenham's proving ground and Madrid's cathedral, through a 2013 turning point, a defining 2014 corner, the awards of 2018, a record 6 Champions League final wins, and a late career Milan chapter. We explored 3 questions. What if Hajduk had signed him earlier? What if Spurs had sold to Chelsea in 2011? And how his longevity should inform future development models. For further study, compare his craft to Xavi and Andrés Iniesta, similar instruments tuned to different orchestras. This concludes our lecture for today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor. That was helpful to think through, actually.